Welcome back to Main Street Living. Danielle, Quincy, Black History Month can sometimes feel very serious, and there are definitely some serious issues to discuss and a lot of ugly history to unpack. But there are many uplifting stories to explore as well.
That's right, Cheryl. In fact, our next guest has spent a career giving audiences the reason to lighten up a little and laugh a little more. And we are very excited to have the very first and best African American female impressionist, Dr. Sylvia Traymore Morrison. Welcome to the show, Doc.
Hello, how are you?
Doing great. How about you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm
good.
Excited to be here. Just excited.
Yeah, well, you look like you're in high spirits. I remember I met you a couple years ago at the DC Comedy Festival, and I just admire who I had a chance to be across from. But you've had an incredible career, Dr. Sylvia, and it's still going strong. But back in the early days, you were managed by Redd Foxx, and you also hosted a roast for Muhammad Ali. And from what I understand, then you signed as an associate writer for Saturday Night Live. I mean, you got to tell us. It's a lot to unpack. So. How did you get started?
Wow, Quincy, when you say it like that, it just sounds good. It's like, wow, who is that? But I signed my first management contract with Redd Foxx. And not only did I host the Muhammad Ali roast at a request from Dick Gregory, I replaced, you ready? I actually replaced, now I'm not saying anything about how this is. Richard Pryor was supposed to host the Muhammad Ali roast.
Wow.
Yeah, and he couldn't make it that day. And everybody was busy all across the country. Anybody that they could have flown in immediately was busy. And I had been to Europe to entertain the American troops. And one of the girls that I went to Europe with told Dick Gregory that if they hired me, they wouldn't have a problem. So I actually replaced Richard Pryor. It was like deep. It was like,
that's historic right there.
Yeah. So.
And you've entertained the troops. You've toured with Whitney Houston, just a name drop here. You've worked with countless legends basically over the years. What have been some of your favorite gigs that you've worked on, or who do you love to impersonate?
Well, one of my favorite gigs I worked on, and I love telling this quick story because it just warms my heart. I did 23 cities with Whitney Houston, 23 major American cities. And we did 3 spots in Canada. And this one particular night, she called me up on stage because we used to run out front to watch her perform after nobody was on the show but me and Whitney. I opened, she closed. And she was up on the stage and looking down at me, and she said, and I'm like, what does she want? I don't know what, because everybody was afraid. It's Whitney Houston, And so she sent security out to get me to bring me on stage. And when I got on stage, she grabbed my hand and she lifted up. I almost cry every time I tell the story. She lifted it up high in the air. And she said, hey, you guys, hey, wasn't Sylvia wonderful? Wasn't she just wonderful? And you could hear the roar of 15,000 people. Like, I believe you could hear it miles away. It was the most enchanting night of my career, I believe.
Wow.
That Whitney Houston gave me a stamp like that. So that was big. That was big.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's Whitney Houston, but like you're a working performer, a mom, and also an author of several books, Dr. Sylvia. You got to tell us about your books.
When I used to go to shows and people would ask me questions, and it would always be stuff about my career. And so I said, you know what, I'm just going to write it down in a book. And I didn't know what I was facing. It took me 5 years to finish the autobiography because I had to get the right dates, the right times, the right this, the right that, the right I had to put in Saturday Night Live and touring with the Temptations and the Four Tops for the Motown's 25th. It was just a lot. So the name of the autobiography is Almost There, Almost. And after Whitney died, I was devastated, and I was doing a show in Philadelphia, and this whole story called Jelly Beans from Heaven came to me on stage, and I didn't even have to work. It only took me about a year to write that book. And then last year, year before, 2020, COVID came into my house, and I was sick, so sick. It was like demonic sick, evil, COVID, evil. And so I decided to write a book entitled Me, Satan, God, and COVID, because all four of us were in the room together. All four of us were in that room battling. We were battling. I said, oh, it was horrible. It was just horrible. So, and the fourth book that I'm working on to be released this late this summer is entitled Wings of the Untold. And it's about a young Black female woman, myself, who went into the airlines as an airline stewardess, is what we used to call them back in the day. And I took that job because it gave me a chance to travel from New York to DC to LA, and I could go to all the clubs. So, but I had an experience as a flight attendant back in the 1970s. So it's amazing because my first professional show I did was in Washington, DC at a place called Constitution Hall. It seats about a couple thousand people. I don't know what it was, but the year 1969. So it put me over the 50-year mark. At least that's how I look at it. You know,
that's a milestone.
Yeah.
That's how you look at it.
Yeah.
But now when people ask you all these questions about your life, you can say, read the book.
Well, I do say that. But if they ask me specific questions, I'll give it to them. But I do say that. I do say, oh, my book is available on Amazon, or if you want a signed copy, just reach out to me. I'll send you a signed copy.
Oh, that's so cool. Well, so I do want to ask you, of course, especially because we're celebrating Black History Month, how you think your journey to success was made more difficult because you are a Black woman. And do you think it's gotten any better since you started?
What a great question. It was extremely difficult because I didn't know any other females, Black or white or Asian or nobody back then to call and say, meet me at the open mic, or meet, let's do so-and-so, or how did I do? There was nobody. The only other comic that I knew who had a reputation was a woman named Moms Mabley. And she came up from out of the Chitlin circuit with, it's some wonderful history with Red Fox and Pigmeat Markham. A lot of the comics that a lot of people don't know about, but they were nationally and internationally known. And me going into the couple of nightclubs back then, because we didn't have many clubs to go to. I believe I was the first Black girl to hit the Comedy Store stage in California, which was where I met David Letterman. We were in line together to do comedy. Jay Leno. I'm sorry I'm dropping names, but it is what it is. And Robin Williams was my very favorite. He was so nice to me. So of course I was devastated when he died. But I remember him telling me over and over, you know what, Sylvia, you're gonna be big. You're gonna be big. And I'm like, all of a sudden here comes Mork and Mindy. I said, that's
well, Sylvia, you've had, because we've got to go, but you've had such a great career spanning 5 decades. Really quick, how can our viewers keep up with you?
They can follow me on Instagram. I'm at Sylvia T. Morrison, and Facebook is Sylvia Traymore Morrison. I'm on Snapchat, WeChat, He Chat, She Chat. It's TikTok and all that other stuff. Yes.
And you also have a comedy event in Virginia on Valentine's weekend. So make sure you guys check that out as well.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Sylvia.
Thank you, guys.
All right, man. I wish we had so much more time with her because you can tell she has a million great stories. But unfortunately, we're moving on to our next story. So coming up next, we're going to meet a very special change maker. Don't go anywhere.